So that number right there just ended the housing crash debate. Most people have never even seen it. The people predicting a housing crash are hoping you never do see it. My name is Eric Hamilton. I'm a top 1% lender in the country. This page is dedicated to bringing clarity and confidence in your home buying journey. I've been doing mortgages for over 20 years. I have sat across from buyers during the 2008 housing collapse. I have watched firsthand what a real crash looks like up close and personal. And what I'm going to show you right now is exactly what you're seeing today is not even close. So stay with me for the next few minutes as I walk you through all of the data. Because by the end of this video, you're going to understand that the housing market today is better than 95% of what people are talking about online. Let me show you 3 years and 30 seconds. 2005, you see right here, builders are overbuilding. Lenders are handing out loans to anyone that wanted to get a loan. Weekly new listings nationally were running around 300,000 to 400,000 homes were hitting the market every single week. In 2006, the cracks really started to show in the housing market. Adjustable rate loans began resetting, payments doubled overnight, and people who could barely afford the original payment cannot touch a new payment at the higher interest rate. Then in 2007, foreclosures exploded. Listings surged, past 400,000 a week. Prices start falling, banks start failing. This was a very difficult time in the market. Then in 2008, the full collapse. 13 months of housing supply on the market, and right now we have less than 2 months. Prices down 30, 40, 50% depending on your market. Now, let's look at where we are today. 50,245 listings this past week. We are not even the same universe as 2008. We are not even in the same conversation. Here's why this number matters so much. Housing prices crash when supply overwhelms demand. Sellers flood to the market, buyers disappear, and desperation sets in. For that to happen today, you would need millions of homeowners to suddenly need to sell at the same time. Here's the problem with that theory. The average homeowner right now is actually sitting on rates almost as low as 3%, some under 4%. Their monthly payment is locked in. Their equity is growing and very real. And the alternative is selling into a market where the next home costs 60 to 80% more per month to finance. They have no reason to sell, and that's why inventory is so low. And when sellers don't move, supply doesn't grow. And when supply doesn't grow, prices hold. This is just simple math that we look at every single day. And as a buyer, you need to know and understand this math. It's the key to giving yourself confidence to move forward. Next, I want to show you something I have never seen another mortgage advisor walk through on video. I'm going to show you the exact payment comparison between buying a home in 2021 and buying the same home today. And the number is going to shock you, not because the market is crashing, because of what it actually means for buyers who are waiting to purchase. Let's use a $450,000 home, median price range for a lot of first-time home buyers right now today. In 2021, at a 3% rate, your principal and interest payment was roughly $1,897 a month. Today, at 6.75 rate, that same home at the same price is $2,922 a month. That is a $1,025 difference every single month. Now, here is what the crash waiters are actually betting on. For that $1,025 gap to close through price decline alone, home prices would need to fall by approximately 25 to 30%. And as we showed you, there's no supply mechanism in this market that produces a 25 to 30% decline with current inventory levels. So the waiting strategy has a math problem. Every month you wait, you are paying rent. You build zero equity. And if rates drop before prices fall, which is far more likely scenario, you will be competing against every other buyer who was also waiting and on the sidelines. Let's talk about what's waiting actually cost you. If you bought that $450,000 home today and value stayed completely flat, and that's just what most people think, and being a pessimist is really about, in 5 years, you would have paid down roughly about $30,000 in principal with no equity growth. If value rose by even 3% annually, your equity position after 5 years is over $100,000. The renter who waited 5 years for a crash that never came, they paid $120,000 to $180,000 in rent with zero equity, zero appreciation, and zero wealth position. The math does not favor waiting when supply is this constrained. Now I want to flip this completely because there is a legitimate scenario where prices do fall in 2026. And I'm going to tell you exactly what would have to happen for that to be true. Here is what would need to happen. First, unemployment would have to spike significantly. Forced selling only happens at scale when people lose income and cannot make their monthly payments. Second, inventory would need to at least double from current levels, from roughly 4.4 months of supply toward almost 6 to 7 month range in the current market. And third, mortgage delinquencies would have to rise sharply. Right now, they still remain near historic lows because of today's qualified borrowers are using much different lending standards. And while we've seen some increases in foreclosures, that's from record lows after the pandemic. Foreclosures are still at very, very low levels. Loan performance is still at an all-time high, and we are not seeing any type of foreclosures like we would see in previous markets. None of those three conditions that I just mentioned are currently present at the levels needed to produce a crash in home prices. Could conditions change? Absolutely. And we monitor this every single week. And that is the beauty of data today that we have available to us. We can monitor this every single week, not just every single month. But the people that are predicting a crash and are making predictions based on what they feel and not the data. The data shows very different information, and that's why it's so important to make a good decision as a home buyer. And in 20 years of doing this, feelings have never been a reliable market indicator. Fear drives behavior, and fear causes people to delay a home purchase. So here's the question that actually matters for you. Not whether the market is going to crash, but what is the right strategy for your situation given the data and all the things that we went through today? Because the answer is different for every single person. If you are a first-time buyer with solid income, good credit, and a 3 to 5 year timeline, the data suggests waiting is a very risky move to not purchase a home. If you are a move-up buyer locked into a low rate, the conversation is about timing, equity strategy, and whether a trade-up house makes sense. If you are sitting on the fence because of headlines, you owe it to yourself to look at the actual numbers, not the fear, not the narrative that is out there today. And maybe at the end of the day, you don't end up purchasing, and that's fine, but make sure you make a decision based on facts and not the fear that is out there. This is exactly what we do in our fully underwritten pre-commitment process. It's not just a pre-approval, a real underwritten commitment that gives you the clarity to make a confident decision before you ever write an offer. Getting the loan done is the easy part. It's all the work that we do up front, and understanding the data and walking through the data and comparing where inventory is and what the market is and what your timeline is all very important. It's way more than just a pre-approval. It's about understanding data and giving yourself the confidence about moving forward. The housing crash everyone is waiting for is just not in the data. It may make for good headlines and get people to click on their ads, but the reality is it's not what the numbers are showing and what the data is showing. If you want to understand what the numbers mean for your specific situation, there is a link in the description, or drop your question in the comments and I will answer them directly. No pitch, no pressure, just the strategy.